Yeah, so first of all, welcome Logan. Thank you for being here tonight. We're very excited to finally learn something that's being pushed down our throats by marketing campaigns rather than companies that actually enlighten us with what we need to know about it. So welcome on that. For the guys that don't know it, I think it's very few of you. This is our co-working space at Grounded. So during the day it's being used by our members for work. So they pay membership, sit here, get work done, get to know other great members as well. I should maybe point to some of our other members as well, just so that I don't seem to favor Logan tonight. And yeah, so if you are interested, bored of home, check, we've got our pamphlets around, sign up, try it out. I believe it's worth it.
Yes.
And I'm not saying that because it pays my salary, I really do believe it's worth it because I was part of this community before I started getting a salary.
Right.
And then yeah, I think that's more or less it. Did I miss anything? Didn't miss anything. Everybody got themselves their glass of wine, grabbed snacks. Especially you guys that sit at tables that don't have snacks, reach over, don't cough while you do it, but reach over and get yourself something, and then I'm handing over to Logan.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Logan.
Yeah. Cool. So the plan here is I'm going to try to go through this stuff pretty quick. The goal for me here is actually to get to the Q&A because that's where the juicy stuff really is. This is just some fundamentals. Stop me if you have any questions, because as I said, the question and answers is really the good part anyway. So if anything doesn't make sense, also if you can't see this, I imagine if you're way in the back, maybe some of these words you can't quite see. So if I go over something and you want to ask me what something actually says, feel free to stop me. So, okay, a good place to start is to talk about what I call the bold claims of Bitcoin. So just to list them very quickly, there's no inflation. It's uncensorable and immutable, which just means it's unchangeable, it's unhackable, it's unstoppable, and it's uncontrollable and incorruptible. And all of this applies even to governments or any powerful institution. So these are very bold claims, and we can dive into any one of these, and I can talk about why exactly, how we can even build such a thing. You know, especially the unhackable thing. It's pretty counterintuitive to think we can build anything that's unhackable, but Bitcoin and blockchain technology does seem to give us that. So, these are bold claims, and that's how they are, and so we can dive into any of those. On the inflation bit, so there's only 21 million Bitcoins that will ever exist. We'll talk about Bitcoin at first, we'll generalize it to cryptocurrency more generally in a moment. But yeah, by the year 2040, we will have basically generated 21 million Bitcoins, and then there will never be any more. And if you compare this to basically any national currency, the US government or the South African government can print money essentially whenever they want, which is not great because the people who can print the money, who can inflate the money, they give it to their friends. Their friends can spend the new money at the old money value, and by the time that money trickles down to the bottom people, the economy has felt the effects of inflation. I think I'm ranting about inflation now. Anyway, short story is inflation is bad. It's very bad, and Bitcoin basically, and cryptocurrencies generally kind of factor that out, so you get a more pure money system. I'll just go through these in a bit more detail before going on. So that's the inflation. Uncensorable, what I mean by that is if I want to send you Bitcoin, no matter where I am in the world, no one can stop that. As long as I can get a connection to the internet, I can send you Bitcoin. And as long as you can get your connection to the internet, you can then send that Bitcoin somewhere else. So again, there's no power in the world, not even governments, that can stop that from actually happening, unless you actually block someone from the internet. Unhackable basically just means that, okay, so if I have Bitcoin on my phone, you can steal my phone and you've stolen my Bitcoin. But what you can't do is you can't go to the Bitcoin system itself and actually hack my money away. You can't print yourself more money. Bitcoin and cryptocurrency generally can be thought of as it's sort of it's a game that we're all playing. So like if we sit down and play chess, I can't make an invalid move. As soon as I do that, I'm not really playing chess anymore. I'm doing something else. Similarly with the Bitcoin network, if I try to send money twice, send the same money to you and to you, it's actually just not possible for me to put that let's say that move onto the game of Bitcoin. It just won't work. the network of Bitcoin will just look at that and they'll say, well, that's invalid, and it just doesn't get included. In a similar way, I could take the Bitcoin history and I could change it to whatever I want, but I can't take that changed version and actually make the network accept it. So, any questions so far? I know I might be going kind of quick. Okay.
I actually do have a question with regards to that invalid move.
Yeah.
So, does before the transaction even, and I'm going to compare it now to the old banking system because that's where my mind is, but if I say pay 50 Bitcoins to you and 50 Bitcoins to Karim, but I only had 50, does that second one, does the system just go and it never happens, or is there something that happens and then it says no, return it or something in that line? So at what point does the system call it as an invalid move?
Right, okay. I'll try not to get too complicated, but this actually gets at the heart of what blockchain has solved at an invention level. So I have these two transactions, and they're mutually exclusive is sort of what you're saying. One can go through, but the other one can't. But either one really could be the first valid one, right? As soon as any one of them is included in the blockchain, and the blockchain is just this piece of technology I'll get to, but it's basically like a shared spreadsheet. It's just a record that we can share with certain properties. As soon as the one is included, the other one becomes invalid. Now, here's where it kind of gets complicated, because what if I have two computers on either side of the world, and I broadcast one from one computer and the other one from the other computer? Now, half of the network might see the one first, and the other half might see the other one first, so which one is actually the real one? That's a hard problem to solve, and without getting into the details, that's what blockchain has solved. And so blockchain solves what's called the double spend problem. You know, how do you, if you have a network that's decentralized, there's no Bitcoin server in the world, how do you know which of two transactions really came first? I mean, the speed of light, if nothing else, would allow you to make one here and one over here, and then which one's first, it's all relative, right? Literally relative. So blockchain solves that, and then that gets into mining, which I don't like to get too much into mining because it's a very technical thing, but it's, we'll talk later about how the blockchain is an invention like the combustion engine. We don't need to really talk about how the combustion engine works to talk about why cars are so cool. Any questions so far? Okay. Unstoppable. That one's pretty cool. So here you can compare it to radio. If you wanted to stop radio, like all radio in the world, you'd have to actually go and shut down every single radio station in the world. That's different than, and that's because radio is decentralized. I actually didn't write down those buzzwords, decentralized and centralized, but that's very key here. So radio is decentralized. Conversation is also decentralized. Many things are decentralized. The internet is decentralized. There's no server of the internet. However, Facebook is centralized. Google is centralized. This co-working space is centralized. There's a central point where if you take that down, the whole system goes down. If the Facebook servers are shut down, Facebook doesn't work anymore. Cryptocurrency, however, Bitcoin included, of course, these are decentralized like radio stations. And so instead of servers, we have what are called nodes. But you would have to go all over the world and shut down every node of Bitcoin to actually turn it off. And furthermore, you'd actually have to go and delete all of the copies of the blockchain to make sure nobody could ever just boot it up again. And so when we say unstoppable, I mean, technically speaking, you could stop it if you literally went to everyone who's using Bitcoin and destroyed their computers and destroyed all the records of it, but it's so infeasible, we might as well say it's unstoppable. And again, even by governments. And then uncontrollable, incorruptible, it sort of gets to the unhackable thing as well. So you have this game called Bitcoin that's running all over the world. And there's just no place to control it from. There's no admin key. Facebook servers have various passwords and usernames, and I could go spin up my own server and I'll have, let's say, backdoor access to that, or admin rights, but the blockchain just doesn't have that anywhere in it. It's a protocol where all these nodes, these computers are communicating, and they know how to play the game, and they also know how to detect cheating. That's all it is. There's no one really controlling the game. It's like kids playing tag. There's no tag referee, really. They just understand the rules enough and can sort of self-police. And so just Bitcoin network and cryptocurrencies in the same way as uncontrollable, just like a game of tag is uncontrollable, I suppose. Incorruptible is the same thing. If you can't control something, you can't really corrupt it. Any questions at this point?
Just that even by government, well, there's rumor now that government's going to look into the taxing of cryptocurrency.
You say taxing?
Yeah, taxation of it. How are they going to do that? they sort of can't trace what you're having, how they're going to tax you
Yeah.
on your earnings?
It's a good question, and I think it will be so difficult that we will come to see tax as voluntary, essentially. And so government can say what they want. They can say, if you've made this much in cryptocurrency, you have to pay taxes. But when you look at, so let's say I'm the government and I'm trying to get tax from two people. One person has regular money and the other person has cryptocurrency. The person with regular money, if they say no, I can just go to the bank and get it. It's very easy. With cryptocurrency, it's a whole different thing. First of all, just assuming I even know they have cryptocurrency, which I might not know, there's no bank I can go to. There's no admin privileges again that I can go and say, okay, actually, no, that's mine now. That's the government. That's mine or the people's, however I'd like to say it. So, if you start getting into crypto, what you'll find is that it's actually more work to pay tax than not pay tax. It's actually easier to not pay tax with crypto. It happens sort of by accident. Yeah.
Logan, aren't there recent examples of people hacking cryptocurrency accounts?
So you can hack exchanges.
Okay.
And again, it's like, I can always steal your wallet, but that's not hacking cash, right? And I could go break into the bank that has your money, but that's not really hacking money writ large.
Okay.
And so we'll talk about the practicals here. So if you actually want to get into cryptocurrency, what that looks like, there's two steps. Where do you buy and sell it, and then how do you actually hold it? And the reason these are two distinct questions is because if you just buy it and leave it on the exchange, it's not really yours. It's more like you have a login that lets you access it. But if someone hacks the server, this centralized entity that has the cryptocurrency, they can take the cryptocurrency. But again, that's not really hacking cryptocurrency, that's hacking the server. And that's why there's two steps here. In fact, sometime in the 2010s, there was one major exchange that everyone was using in cryptocurrency and it got hacked, and a lot of people lost a lot of money. It's called Mt. Gox. You might know that piece of history. And ever since then we've learned, you don't leave your money on an exchange, or your crypto rather, because it's not really yours. Instead you put it on your wallet. And once it's on my phone or my computer, wherever my wallet is, my phone actually has a piece of information that controls that cryptocurrency and nothing else can. To the point where if I lose my phone and I don't back it up, I've lost the cryptocurrency. Or if someone takes my phone, they have my cryptocurrency.
But will they be able to access it?
Well, it depends. So if my wallet has a password and they know my password, then yes. If I've just, so if I have a wallet with a lot of cryptocurrency, I'll typically back it up and I'll write down a particular, it's like a 12-word phrase, it's called a seed phrase, but it's just a way to back up the secret that you need to move the cryptocurrency. If someone takes that secret, they could then take money from cryptocurrency. Yeah. And there's no way I could get it back. There's no return policy in crypto, at least not the base layer. It's irreversible.
There's something in the media as well about this one guy that was like so wealthy and had so many crypto, and nobody could remember his password.
Yes.
I think he died or something happened to him.
Yeah.
There's all those millions, but nobody can claim it.
Yep. There's many stories like that. Some of them end with them finding the hard drive that they lost or remembering the password. In fact, just a few months ago, a friend of ours couldn't remember her password, but she remembered part of it. So it was kind of like a hacker action movie. We all got together and wrote a little script that we took the parts of her password that we knew and tried to guess the other part, right? So in a way, we're like hacking, but we're just hacking your password again. We're not hacking Bitcoin. We still needed the password at the end of the day to actually get the crypto.
Isn't that then ending up with like Bitcoin when you said how many million?
Yeah.
Won't Bitcoin then eventually possibly almost die out with a bunch of people that just lost it?
Right. So as you go on,
Forgot their passwords.
yeah. So as the history goes, we'll see things like this. I mean, obviously but there will always be this area here of cryptocurrency, or Bitcoin in this case, that no one will ever be able to touch. We can't really know how many is in there because we don't know which accounts have lost their passwords. All we know, we could look at an account and say, well, that money hasn't moved in years, but we don't know. Maybe they lost the password, or I shouldn't say the password, I should say the private key. That's this piece of information that controls the crypto.
Is every cryptocurrency just buying 21 million? Is
No.
everyone?
In fact, I'm glad you asked because I wanted to make this move at a certain point. So really, these are both claims of blockchain. and I'll sort of answer your question just right now. Because when we talk about blockchain, all these stay the same except for this one changes a little bit. So when we talk about the role claims of blockchain, we generalize this first one to known immutable economic rules. So in the case of Bitcoin, the known rule is that there will never be more than 21 million. But if in Ethereum, for example, which I'll talk a lot more about, there actually is an inflation, but we know what it will be and it can never change. So we all are playing by the same rules. And again, there's no, just like there's no money printer in Bitcoin, there's technically a money printer in Ethereum, but we all know how the game works. We're not, there's not someone who can arbitrarily say, okay, I'm actually just going to print more money out.
That's the one that's outshining Bitcoin economy.
Say again?
That's the one that's outshining Bitcoin economy.
Yes.
It increases by an exponential amount.
Yes, yeah, well, and I'll talk a lot more about why that is. Yeah, but I would say, as I say here, Bitcoin is important, but crypto is rad. So Bitcoin is, in a way, Bitcoin is almost historical at this point. It's very important, it's like the Model T. So I'll just go through this actually, since we're talking about this. So Bitcoin is the first cryptocurrency. Every cryptocurrency has a blockchain. And this box here is just disentangling blockchain, cryptocurrency, and Bitcoin. They're very related terms. The blockchain is an invention like the combustion engine. The combustion engine solves a certain kind of mechanical problem. The blockchain solves the double spend problem, to where we can actually have a currency that's decentralized. So before we made this invention, we couldn't make decentralized currency. We had to make centralized currency. When you make centralized currency, the government comes and shuts it down, so it never worked. Bitcoin is a pioneering product like the Ford Model T, so it's the first application of blockchain. The same guy who invented blockchain also invented Bitcoin, but the concepts themselves can be separated like that. And then cryptocurrency is a new industry, like automobiles in the 1880s. And so there's many cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin is one of the cryptocurrencies, and every cryptocurrency has a blockchain. Don't remember exactly what your question was, but I hope that answered it.
I'll have more.
About Ethereum.
Oh, yes.
Okay. About Ethereum.
So, any questions before we move on? Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, why isn't that anyone really kept on the...
So in Bitcoin's case, that's the rules of the game. It's the protocol, just built into the protocol. There are certain rules for how much is given to miners. That's where they come from at first. How much is mined every block, and I don't know if it's explicitly written, like in the code, 21 million, but it's constructed such that the mining will sort of stop at that point. We'll never have more than that. And so if you try to print more than that, there's no way you could get the Bitcoin network to agree with you on any move that will ever increase that number. They'll just say, no, that's not part of the rules of the game. Can't make that move. Yeah.
Just a common question for us, now I thought to explain it. So what is the value of the land? Is it the value we described?
Yeah.
You cryptocurrency to a land, which is some value and it's market. But there's nothing essentially underlying it, so the value back to the land.
Right. That's a good question. It's a bit of a subtle answer. A metaphor is really nice here. Imagine that we had like this magical gold, and the magical gold only has one property. If you shave off a piece of that gold and you like burn it, you can transport the gold to anyone else in the world. That's Bitcoin. So, Bitcoin is the currency, but it's also the sort of the ticket that you need to use the system that can transport money with all these wonderful benefits of being uncensorable and blah, 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 and decentralized. Say again? Well, that's a part of it. So, in a way, Bitcoin is it's an ideal form of money, right? And and the value of Bitcoin. So there's Bitcoin the currency, and then there's Bitcoin the platform. It's a little bit confusing. But when we talk about what the value of Bitcoin the currency is, it's that you need that currency to use the platform. And the platform has all these benefits, of one of which is that we know there will never be inflation, and so if I hold Bitcoin, over time that will actually become worth more as opposed to dollars, or rand, which will become less and less over time. But yeah, these known economic rules is one of these benefits that we can only access by actually holding Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. Yeah. Okay, we're almost done with sort of my presentation here, and then more Q&A will ensue. But so there's many cryptos. Bitcoin was the first one. It's still the biggest by market cap. The next runner-up is Ethereum, which I'll talk about just now. There's other ones. I'm sure everyone's heard of Dogecoin. A depressing amount of people have heard of Dogecoin and bought it. I'm sad to say. I'll just tell everyone right now. Dogecoin is basically just a copy of Bitcoin, but it's memeier. That's it.
It's what?
Memeier. It's more of a meme.
Actually started out as a joke.
Yeah, what's that?
It started out as a joke.
It started out as a joke, and it still is a joke, which doesn't mean it won't go up.
Yeah.
But it means that if you want to get into cryptocurrency and you put money into Dogecoin, you're putting money into funny money. Yeah, who knows what funny money is going to do? I don't know. Fry I've written down because just to point out that this is actually our token. So we made a token. We actually built it on Ethereum. But anyone can make a cryptocurrency. There's literally thousands of them. I mean, there's so many. The question is like, why can't I create my own currency and just give it value? The answer is because I could make my own currency, but no one wants to buy it. Like, why would I buy Logan Coin? Right? I'd have to really sell that up and do a lot of marketing. Or make a technical innovation, which is what Ethereum has done. So Ethereum, we can think about Bitcoin like a world computer with just one app. So it's a virtual computer that's running all over the world, and the only app it does is it sends money. Still a pretty useful thing, but fairly simple. Ethereum takes the same technology, the same blockchain technology, and you can still send Ether over Ethereum. Ether is the coin on Ethereum. But you can also, as a programmer, you can program your own small script, which is called a smart contract, and you can install it onto the world computer now. So a really simple example would be, I could write a smart contract that whenever it receives money, it sends half to you and half to you. Maybe it logs some data. That's a smart contract. I write that in a particular language called Solidity. It's not too important. And then I pay a fee to put that on the Ethereum network. And now that will be there forever. No one can ever delete that program. No one can ever change it, and everyone can see what it does. So that's what a smart contract is. It's a bit of a misnomer because it's really just a simple computer program running on the world computer. We call it smart contracts because you can do things like legal contracts do, but with computer code.
Sorry, Logan, what's the world computer?
So we can think of Bitcoin like a world computer that only sends money.
Okay.
Right? It's like a virtual computer that's out there somewhere.
It's not centralized?
It's not centralized,
Okay.
but it's like a virtual computer.
Okay.
And this virtual computer, in Bitcoin's case, just remembers who has what money, and there's functions for sending money.
Okay.
Ethereum takes this world computer, and it does the same stuff, but it allows anyone to put their own script on top of it. And that's called a smart contract. And a smart contract can't break the rules of the system underneath it. So I can't make a smart contract that creates money out of nowhere. At least not Ether, not the main money. But I can build my own rules set on top of it. I could say, oh, I'm going to make a new currency, and this currency prints 10 coins every hour, whatever I want. Or maybe it burns 10 coins every hour, whatever I want. And I can build that on top, and then people can join in with my economic game, let's say, as I've written it in Ethereum smart contract. And what's really cool is that someone else can then see my contract, and they can build their own contract on top of that. And that contract can't break my contract's rules, but it can make another game on top of it. Right? So a good example is like if you were to write a checkers game in a smart contract and put that on top on Ethereum, someone else could go write a smart contract that uses your checkers logic but then adds betting on top. So the betting app can't break the checkers logic, but it can add on the logic of betting. And this sort of, we're starting to call them DeFi Legos. DeFi is Decentralized Finance. And people talk about DeFi Legos. It's these little economic games that you can join in. Some of them do loans. Stable coins is another one I'll talk about in a moment. But anyone can go and basically make whatever economic rules that they want. They can throw it on there, and they can include other people's Legos that people have already built, some of which have been running for a year or 2 years or 3 years, and so we're pretty sure they just are unbreakable, actually. So this DeFi thing, it's like a big stack of stuff, and occasionally something breaks, and everything built on top of it breaks. But there are some things that seem to be unbreakable, actually, because they're built with solid rules. And so this thing, it's sort of growing, and a bit over here crumbles, but then it builds back, and it's really exciting to see. The first step of which was the stable coin. So I get my salary in DAI. 1 DAI is always $1 US. How it does that is a big, complicated thing. But the point is, it's an economic game where it's not that some company is saying, well, we have dollars in our bank accounts, so we're going to, make this token, and we promise that will give you the dollars if you bring the DAI back. It's not like a central bank type thing. It's rather, it deals with like, you can take your Ether, put it into a thing like as collateral, and then generate DAI, and there's all these incentives to basically make it to where when you zoom out, what happens is that there's this thing called DAI that always is equal to $1 US, or close. It's like 97 cents or $1.03, but it stays right there. And so that's something that I'm using today. I get paid in DAI, which has all the benefits of cryptocurrency, but none of the volatility. So I get paid $300, and that's $300, and then I can go buy whatever else I want if I want to do more.
Except if you die.
Except if I die. Yeah, good point. What's that?
Or forget your password.
Right, yeah. I've had some scares too. I actually once lost crypto for over a year. I couldn't find my backup because I'd hidden it too effectively. And I later was going through old stuff, old notebook, and it fell out, and I was like, oh my god. And yeah, there I got my money back.
So it's the crypto equivalent of finding 100 rand in your pocket the next winter.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, so the other two things we can go over are NFTs and DAOs. These are particular
Can I
versions
just,
of...
sorry, with regards to that, where you mentioned that they built a little bit of Lego and then sometimes it crumbles and everything that was built on top of that. Am I correct in stating that the person that built that one that crumbles more often than not realizes where they made that mistake and then starts rebuilding it? Is that more or less the...
More often you'll have competitors that come and do it better. So it's not usually the same person.
But the flaws aren't missed. Someone picks up on that.
Right.
That's why it crumbles.
Well, and usually they crumble. They crumble because someone finds an attack vector. So this whole space is permissionless. You have this big DeFi stack, and if you see a little crack where you can, let's say, throw $1,000 and you get $10,000 out, someone will do it. So you might as well. And that's the situation. But that's great actually because it makes the whole system anti-fragile. Because if something's been around for 2 or 3 years and it hasn't been attacked, it's a pretty good indication it's actually unkillable. So. Yeah. Does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to get a chair and sit down. And,
Can I get yours?
maybe I'll
This
just...
one? Logan?
Ah, cool. So, I could talk about DAOs and NFTs, but I kind of feel like I've been talking a while. So if anyone has any questions, anything at all?
I just want to, can you make money? I suppose that's what everybody wants to do.
Yes.
That's the one. Can you get rich?
Yes.
Let me be blunt.
Yeah.
Can you get rich?
Yeah.
The other thing is, can you ever physically get this crypto, I suppose not in your hand? Can I buy a car with my crypto? Say for instance, I make 10,000 crypto from you. Can I now go and buy a car for 10,000 rand? And how do I do that?
Right.
If I can.
Okay. Yeah.
And am I going to get rich?
Yeah. Okay. So 2 questions. They're pretty related though, but just to treat them as 2 questions. So, let's say the good cryptos, Bitcoin and Ethereum among them. Now, what are the good cryptos is pretty subjective, but just putting that aside for the moment. If there's a crypto that is a good bet, you can put your money in there, and generally over 2 or 3 years, you will have made money and quite a lot of money. You'll see these news stories about Bitcoin crashing. Oh, Bitcoin crashed. What they never say is that Bitcoin does this. It goes up like this, and then it crashes to here. It never crashes to where it was before, and it's often above the previous peak. And this has happened 6 or 7 times now.
That's going to happen from time to time.
Yeah, that's right.
But that's it.
Well, and we'll see it slow down as well, because part of the reason it crashes is because there's not much money in it compared to the US dollar. I mean, the US dollar and the rand also has their fluctuations, but it's much slower. The only reason it's slower fundamentally is because there's less money inside, there's less financial momentum in the crypto system. So as more money enters, these cycles will slow down. And I think we're already seeing that. In fact, you can see that. If you go look at the previous, let's say, pump and dumps, it's way more extreme in the past in terms of percentage than it is today, like by far. So in that way you can make money on it. You can also enter the industry and work for people for cryptocurrency, and that way you make money. It's kind of a different, answering maybe a little bit of a different question. And then as far as actually spending it, there are places that you can use crypto Compare the early internet to mail. The first application of the internet was email. And if I tried to get you on board with email, you'd say, why do I care? Mail works fine, I don't want to have to set up my computer, there's all these barriers to entry, who am I going to email? Just you, right? That would be your response. It's not a good sell. And we thought of the internet as electronic mail. And now we see that the internet is so much more than electronic mail. And it's not even that the internet killed mail, because I still ship you packages, right? But we hadn't yet built enough from the infrastructure to really see all the possibilities. We're just doing like the first applications. And so email is like Bitcoin. Bitcoin, you can send money around, it's great. You have the same exact response. Okay, why do I care about Bitcoin? I have to learn all this new stuff to get it set up, and who am I going to send Bitcoin to? You, right? It's the same legitimate response. But what we've built is an economic system that is so much purer and more secure that as we build it further out, it will start to do things that regular money can't. So, for example, there might be a social media site where you go and you tweet something. It won't be a tweet because it'll be a new platform. But if people like your tweet, you actually get money from it. The reason Twitter can't do that is not because it's a bad idea, but because the financial system is not flexible enough to do that. How would you even, can you even imagine as a user, how you would set up a way to receive money from Twitter, even if they, what would that interface even look like? We don't know because the infrastructure just doesn't allow it. I sold an ebook once. I made an ebook and I sold it and I got money from that, but Amazon had to really go and engineer that whole thing to make me a publisher that could actually make money. I don't know how much work that took, and it also wasn't as simple as just me putting my credit card in. I had to connect my bank account and stuff like that as well. And so I guess that's the answer. It's not really exciting because it will one day allow you to spend money at Walmart. Let me rather say this actually. When the day comes that you can spend money at the store, that will come after the day that you can do cool shit with cryptocurrency that makes you want it even though you can't yet spend it at the store, because that's what's going to get people on board. When you have an app on your phone that lets you micro loan your $5 and by the end of the day you have $5.10, when you have that app on your phone and it's easy to use, that's when people will get on board. Not when people can go buy it. We don't need another money to buy bread with. Not really. That's a legitimate question, but that's not how we'll get there.
Can I mention something David mentioned to me the other day? For instance, an example that kind of made this clear for me is like your fridge paying for its own electricity. Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So your fridge comes with currency preloaded and it pays for itself to operate.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. Well, and you can combine that with a stock system. So.
But my problem is, say for instance, I pay thousands or I buy 10,000 Rand Bitcoin a euro or whatever now. And at one stage I get stage fright and I want to get out.
Yeah.
Is there a way that I can withdraw my money so that I can get 10,000 back in my pocket or in my bank account or wherever? That part to me is still very, very unclear. I know you can buy it, but apparently there's no, I'm almost going to say return transaction where you can get the money back into your account.
Well, there's no return policy. If you buy $10,000, 10,000 rands of Bitcoin, if later you want to pull it out, you won't have a guarantee that it's worth 10,000 rands. However, you can take it out, and it depends on, it's like buying stocks. If you buy stock and the stock goes down, you take your money out at the wrong time, tough luck. But you can get the money out. It's just as easy to sell as it is to buy.
Will you get not the currency, but will you get the value of it?
Well, yes, but the value of Bitcoin fluctuates. So if you put 10,000 Rand in, and let's say you pull it out 3 months later, it could be worth 20,000 or it could be worth 5,000.
Will you get that added amount?
The added amount.
Yeah, well that extra 10,000.
So if you sell it at 20,000 Rand,
yes, then you get 20,000 Rand.
But only in crypto.
No, you get it.
Do you get it as
Yes. Oh, yeah. Well, I pay my bills that way. I get paid in crypto, so I'm actually more often selling crypto into my fiance's bank account. She's South African. She has a South African bank account. We're signed up with Dogecoin, one of these two exchanges that work in South Africa. And it's actually just a matter of 5 minutes. I can take crypto, put it onto dollar, sell it, and withdraw the rands. It's within 5 minutes. I could literally be at the checkout line, and it's like, oh, I'm out of money. Okay, let me get on my phone. Hold on 5 minutes. Still kind of a pain, but in 5 minutes I can have a large amount of cryptocurrency. There's limits. I don't remember what the limits are. They're lower than I ever need, or higher than I ever need. And yeah, it's just as easy to sell crypto as it is to buy it. Yeah.
When you ask about the hard wallet, you're saying that you want to value sellers. So, when you buy stocks with a certificate that you own a certain share and you own it.
Yeah.
But now with crypto, what's the difference now to having an exchange and having a hard wallet? So basically if I buy 10 Bitcoins and I keep it in the hard wallet, I can at any time put it into Valor and get cash value from it.
Yes.
The hard wallet is just the security portion of it.
Yeah. And specifically the wallet is what. If you have your crypto on the exchange and you never move it, you don't really have the crypto. You have a login that gives you access to the crypto they're holding for you. So if they get hacked or if the government shuts them down, you're kind of out of luck. But if you put it on your wallet, you are, let's say, more fundamentally the owner of that cryptocurrency. Because at a mathematical level, the only thing that can move that cryptocurrency is the thing that knows the private key that your phone knows. So and private key and public key, just quickly to go over that. If I want to send you cryptocurrency, you give me your address, which is basically a public key. And anyone can know that. Your private key is what gives you the right to spend from your public key. So when we talk about the Bitcoin ledger that all the computers know, the history, what we know is, okay, this address or this public address has this much money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The only way that that address can actually send that money, the only way that the Bitcoin network will recognize it as valid is if you generate a signature that you can only generate with your private key. It's a little bit of encryption voodoo, the way private keys work. It's kind of spooky because normally you log in with the username and password, you have to send the username and password somewhere. The server says, okay, that's you. With private keys, it's very weird because you use your private key to generate a signature, you sign some piece of data, and you send that. You actually never have to send your private key, which is one of the reasons Bitcoin is so much more secure. But yeah, that's just a bit of the technical. So when it gets into your wallet, now you have let's say a Bitcoin level guarantee or a cryptocurrency, I should say a blockchain level guarantee that it won't move unless you or someone with your private key actually signs it away. And if it's on the exchange is the private key.
So you generate a signature with your private key?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's interesting.
So it's only when you want to cash out that tax actually becomes more relevant. Let's say if it's 10,000 or 50,000, and at that point where I make 40,000 profit, that means capital gains tax. That's when the SARS gets involved.
Depends on how you sell it. SARS might not even know. Yeah. If you go through Valor, if you have a lot of money, they probably will know. I have a lot of friends who are in cryptocurrency, so I could buy and sell through them if I like. Yeah, so it depends. Once you're in crypto and moving crypto around and trading ETH for Bitcoin or doing any of this crazy DeFi shit, like that is it's technically transparent that this address sent this money here and used this smart contract, but to actually connect that address to you or to me, it's really non-trivial. Someone would have to do a lot of work to do it. And that's just by default. If you actually want to go hide that, you can use systems where it's basically impossible for someone to actually know that it's you. And so, but where they get you is the exchanges. So if you buy on an exchange, every exchange you use, they do KYC, know your customer. You have to show them your passport or your ID, and they won't let you use your system until you do that. And so then they can see your buying and selling history. And then it's a question of, is that company sharing that data with the government? Recently, the government started demanding it from Valor. That might have been what you were hearing about. It seems like they're trying to go after the big guys. But I've traveled all over the world and used different exchanges. I mean, for a government to look at that and give me a tax bill, I can't even imagine how they would do it, even if they wanted to waste money doing it. Like literally spend more money than they give back. I still can't imagine how they would actually do that. And as time goes on, the more I can actually just keep my currency, my wealth, I should say, in cryptocurrency. I never even have to touch the system. I mean, I could go through a drive-through with my friend and give him cryptocurrency so he buys me food. Now I've paid for real life stuff, technically, but the old system, no idea.
How does staking work, and is it safe?
And what?
And is it safe?
It depends on the project. So staking is different projects ask you to basically, okay, we have this coin. If you buy this coin and stake it, which typically is you deposit into their system, they'll give you a reward for that. They give you a reward because the more people that are buying my currency, the happier I am. So you could even think of it as a bribe. It's a bit of a bribe. They're bribing you to keep your wealth with them. It can be worth it, but if the project is rotten, then it doesn't matter if you've made 10% of their coin. If their coin went down 90%, you're still in a bad spot.
Sorry, I'm going to disagree with you. Staking, it depends on the project. If you get the right project, you're actually borrowing the developer's money, lending the money to develop the product. I've staked quite a few products.
Okay.
There's never been a loss.
Okay.
So I don't agree. Sorry, just be safe.
Yeah, but just say that again.
You're lending the developer's money.
Yes. Yeah, that's fair as well. Well, yeah. You deposit money. The money goes into some system, and if the system is rotten, that's bad news. If the system is, that's not saying all systems are rotten. That's just cryptocurrency. Many cryptocurrencies are, if not scams, very irresponsible. That does not mean, of course, that staking itself is bad. You just have to be careful about where you stake your wealth.
So it's project specific, right? I mean, if you had your money in Zimbabwe, it would bring down.
Sorry, say again.
I think it's project specific.
Yeah, it is. Because anyone can make a project, and you don't even need to have any. There's no regulation has a difficult time with cryptocurrency, so anyone can make a project, which is good in the long run, but it means there's lots of shit to avoid in the meantime.
So there's the advanced staking, it sounds to me, and there's the staking for beginners on the platform like Luna and Royal Palace. Is that safe? Because then you don't fund a project, you say, I want to deposit my crypto and earn a interest while the crypto is also running.
Right.
Is that safe?
Well, it depends. It depends on now the exchange. So whoever you're staking with, it depends on how solid their business model is. I'm sorry.
Hopefully they did their homework to go through someone like that already.
I don't think they offer staking. Sorry, I just want Valo, I'm not aware of staking on Valo. Luna has a savings wallet, but it's also volatile because you're supposed to come out, so it might make a little bit of interest. But if Bitcoin falls, it's going to
Do I understand it correctly that if you get into the staking game, essentially it's pretty similar to funding idea that someone has for normal business. So give you 100,000 rand to grow your business. If it works great for me, I'll have shares of 5% or whatever the case might be. If the company grows to be a $1 billion company, I made it good. If you screw up by using that money to pay the KFCs to plan the project further on, which I wasted 100,000.
Right.
That's more or less what it is. So essentially, you just need to do proper reconnaissance, let's call it that, that, on the project that you want to stake and take the risk that's involved with that.
I think the strategy is basically that's the strategy. With staking, I mean, you can sort of win twice, I think. So the difference between staking and just buying cryptocurrencies, you can stake with your cryptocurrency. So like if I want to invest in Ether, and there's a project that allows me to stake with my Ether, then I can take the Ether and stake it with them, and now I'm sort of investing twice. So, but otherwise it's the same risks and trade-off as investing in cryptocurrency or in a stock. In any of those cases, it's always a gamble. There's nothing that's risk-free. And it depends on how good you are at judging the solidity of a project.
And I mean, there are projects where you can basically like fix deposits with Bitcoin. Is that essentially staking?
Speak a little bit louder.
So there are projects where you can take a Bitcoin and lock in for 3 or 4 years and then interest. Is that staking?
Yes, that's staking, yeah. And typically when that happens, they're using it for liquidity. So if I've made a coin, I want a lot of people to buy it. It depends on how many people are buying and selling. That how many people is liquidity. The more liquidity there is, the more some big buyer can buy without changing the price much. So typically, it's in a project's interest to pay for staking, even if it's not in their own token, because then they get this wealth to throw in as liquidity, which just helps the project grow a bit more sustainably.
Have you heard of a company called Revix?
No.
They have like a top 10 bundle where you sort of invest in the top 10 cryptos that there is, and everyone's obviously got an equal share of this, which is better than just in one, because I mean you never know what it's going to do.
It's sort of, but you don't know who's making up that list. And you don't know how smart the list is.
I think it's based on performance.
Well, but that's a bad indication then. It's like, okay, you wouldn't buy a stock just because it went up, right? That's a performance-based buy purchase decision. So I'm not. Maybe it's a good company, but that will depend on how good they are at judging the cryptos. You know. So I mean, I'm sitting here telling you Ethereum's great, and maybe I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, and if you came to me about my top 5 list and I was wrong about that, you know, that's a problem. So yeah, it depends on how much you trust the wisdom of the.
It's also it's expensive. Especially if Ethereum now is really expensive. I mean, you can only buy like 5 or whatever. You know,
No, there's no minimum.
Well, the question is money.
How rich are you?
Yeah. Well, I would disagree that any given crypto at any time can just be said to be expensive now or cheap now, because we don't really know where they're going to go ultimately. And Bitcoin, I mean, what is it? $50,000? I haven't even checked the Bitcoin price recently. And you know, that used to be $1. And when it went up to $10, some people were saying that was expensive, I'm sure. And there's no standard to judge this by. And if crypto does take over the world, the price that we're looking at now is going to be just ridiculously small. We're not going to be able to believe how small the prices were today if it really does, you know, take over the world in some way, get mass adoption.
Do you think it will go on?
I do. Again, I think the first step is that it needs to start getting more sexy. I think it needs to start doing cool shit. And I think we're getting very close. Which we can talk about NFTs. NFTs are getting pretty cool.
So, I've got 2 questions here. First of all, I'm not pretending that our current financial system is strong enough to survive the worst case scenario that I'm going to pitch now.
Okay.
Because I know it doesn't. But I do understand correctly that if something insane would happen and countries decide to shoot out all the satellites out of the world and that ripple effects start to happen, then essentially there is no more currency because there is no more of that connectivity. And like I said, I'm not pretending that our current financial system is better because it's based on a gold value or whatever the case might be, but
Yeah.
isn't there that little bit, and that's the old school concept still talking, isn't there a little bit more safety in gold being the standard rather than...
Well, let's say that gold does not have the failure mode of technological collapse. So I mean, but I do though want to illustrate how infeasible it is that the internet does in 2 ways. First of all, the number of undersea cables, internet cables, and there's tons of them. It's not like 2 or 3 across the Atlantic. There's like tons, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is, like, imagine if some crazy scenario happened and you wake up and everyone around you is dead. What's the first thing you're going to do? Like, let's say you've sorted out food and shelter. No one's around you. What are you going to do? Like, you can't find anyone.
I'll keep on trying to find someone. But
Exactly, which leads to building the internet. The first thing to come online is the internet. After any scenario, I mean, unless we're completely like back to cockroach.
But you know what's scary? Like you hear now, like in a country like Afghanistan, the government shut down the internet like for a day or 2.
Yes.
They did in Nigeria as well, I think the other day. So if they have access to shut down your internet,
Yes.
then obviously they can cause more shit than
That's true. That's true. So when I earlier said blockchain is unstoppable, it's as unstoppable as the internet is unstoppable. Which, how unstoppable is that? I think it's in the middle. I think it's, and it depends on where you are as well. You know, if you're in the middle of Europe, one country can't shut down the internet because the internet's all around them. If you're on a little island, maybe it's different. Maybe it's different here. I was actually traveling through Zimbabwe. And I was staying at this hostel, and they asked me to help them set up their router. And on the phone support, I came to find out that the phone company had the root password of the router, and they'd set it up to where you actually couldn't get on the internet unless they had the root access to your router, which is really, really unsettling. And so Zimbabwe would maybe not be such a good place to depend on an unbreakable internet. So, depends on where you are. Depends on where you are. I mean, there are countries that really do respect their citizens, the Nordic countries. I can't really imagine them shutting down the internet. America, I can't imagine the Americans standing up to the internet being shut down. I mean, you'll have rednecks with generators out there and long Ethernet cables. You know? So the scenario of the whole world sort of going into an internet dark age, I think I've really thought about it a lot, because that is what it comes down to. And I mean, cryptocurrency is very much, I've been into this for 6 years, so I really have thought about this a lot. But it is quite infeasible. If we get to the point where the internet is untouchable, we have so much bigger problems than what currency we're going to use, I think.
And you can't access money in the bank account anyway.
Exactly. And I do think that system is more fragile in other ways as well. Yeah.
And then my second question that sort of goes towards the gold standard as well. Do you foresee that something like a Bitcoin and I'll go to Bitcoin, might become like the gold standard, that everything else in the world, so there is 50 million different currencies, but at the end of the day it's going to be, it's worth 2 Bitcoins if you have a million Ethereum.
I think it will be Bitcoin.
You think it will be Bitcoin?
I think, Bitcoin already is the reserve currency of crypto. And I do think that Ethereum will become worth more than Bitcoin. I think it will displace it, but Bitcoin is so simple, and they built Bitcoin specifically to be unkillable. Like they sat down and said, look, we've tried to make these digital currencies, we being the larger cypherpunks movement, and they keep getting shut down because they're centralized. Let's make a thing that the government can't stop. That's really pretty close to what the whole point of Bitcoin was. I mean, there's more to it than that. It's also an idealized money, but the point is, Bitcoin is the simplest system that we've had for the longest that works. And I think just because of that, no one will ever, like I could copy Bitcoin, but all I've done is I've made a younger Bitcoin that less people care about. Bitcoin already has a network share. I do think Ethereum and the things after Ethereum will do cooler shit, but I think we'll all, in a way, it will rest on top of Bitcoin, because there are scenarios, I would say very implausible, but there are scenarios in which Ethereum sort of collapses or gets halted or something, but Bitcoin carries on because it was really engineered with, look, we just want to send money and we don't want anyone to stop us.
Is XRP similar to that?
Say again?
How does XRP compared to that? Because it was created for sending money, right? At low cost.
I don't think XRP has any technical advantages at all. My understanding of XRP, now this is partially a hunch, so take it with a grain of salt. They seem very icky to me. They seem like they are just trying to market and form partnerships, but not really innovate technically at all. It just seems like they took the crypto branding and made kind of like a cryptocurrency, but really they're operating more like a central bank. I think like their pre-mine, for example, so the guys that made it have like 90% of the whole supply or something, which is far from decentralized. I wouldn't touch XRP with a 10-foot pole. Yeah.
But that all cryptocurrency is trying to solve the problem of sending money cheap.
Yes, but all cryptocurrencies solve that, except for the cheaply part, but that's a bigger problem. But XRP doesn't do anything fundamentally that every crypto doesn't do.
But other cryptocurrencies are doing that, it's saying a lot of money quickly and cheap. So that way, that's the goal of the money. It's not small, that's what it was made for. Bitcoin, that's big gas.
Yes.
There are other cryptocurrencies which are creative. So you just touch on gas,
Yeah. So when you make a decentralized system, a cryptocurrency or a blockchain, as I said, it's like a world computer, but the technology is such that it's an extremely limited world computer. It's very slow. And so with Ethereum, I think it's 30 transactions per second. With Bitcoin, I think it's even less. And that's worldwide. Unlike Visa does thousands or even tens of thousands per second. So the base technologies we have here, in a way, aren't really ready to serve the load of the whole world using them at once. And the way it compensates for that is that the fees go up and up and up until basically everyone's bid out of the market except for the people who are making so much money, probably with some DeFi shit, that they're still willing to pay the gas fees. And that's why the gas fees have risen. to make a system, this gets to your question, to make a system that is both decentralized and scales is actually a really hard problem. There are various solutions that we're making, and they're becoming more mature. The Bitcoin Lightning Network is one of them. But I think that XRP or Ripple I don't think they're decentralized. I think they're just, again, it's more like they're a bank with the face of cryptocurrency, and that's why they can do the cheap transactions.
The gas is basically works. People trading is fine. Once everybody wants to trade, it's big news.
Yeah.
There's a long line of people who want to trade.
Yeah.
And you're basically paying computers or nodes, and then there's a chain with a nice bit of that. Is that how gas fees work?
Yes, that's how gas fees work. So gas fees, just for anyone who isn't familiar with the term, if I was going to send you Bitcoin, there'd be a transaction fee. But when we talk about Ethereum, it gets slightly more complicated because you might be sending money to a contract that needs to do some thinking. So the gas fees is sort of what you have to pay to do the processing. It's almost like you're turning a crank, and if the crank is hooked up to a bunch of gears, you have to turn really hard. That's how Ethereum is. And so if you want to send money to, what's a good example? So I want to take a flash loan out and then take a bunch of money and then throw it at a DAO because I see an attack vector which will trigger something to get me a bunch of money. I have to pay enough money to turn all of those gears at once. And maybe it's worth it because there might be a really juicy attack that I can make and I make a lot of money. But I could pay up to $1,000 in gas fees just for the one.
That difference is not the same every day.
Right. Yeah. So it depends on two things: the gas price, which is like a bidding thing, and then the gas amount, which is how much processing are you willing to pay for. So if you're going to send a simple transaction, the gas amount is quite low, and then if it's a slow day, the gas price is also low. So you could send, the simplest thing you could do is send Ether on Ethereum. And I want to say it's probably $3 to $5 to do that right now.
Would you call that Ether is one of them? Cowork as well, and other systems all on top of that, like DeFi, what is that? That subset of cryptocurrency is called?
Altcoins.
No. You're talking about with smart contracts. Is that right?
No, what's it called? Charles Hoskins is doing that?
Say again?
Cardano.
Cardano.
Yes.
Ethereum, how people go on top of
Yes. So
what do you call that group of cryptos?
So you would call those.
Ethereum,
Yeah.
go on top of.
Well, we could start by just saying they're smart contract capable. So anything that can do smart contracts, that's a class of its own. Ethereum is the first, just like Bitcoin's the first cryptocurrency, Ethereum's the first smart contract cryptocurrency. And then there's also, there's the general class of smart contract capable platforms, and then there's a subclass called EVM compatible, which it stands for Ethereum Virtual Machine, which basically means there's so much like Ethereum that when you build something on Ethereum, you can copy and paste it to this other thing. And those things are the winners right now because there's so much adoption on Ethereum. I mean, stablecoins, they're DeFi's, they're everything, and NFTs and DAOs, they're all on Ethereum. Where if you want to make a smart contract cryptocurrency, it can be a good move to make it EVM compatible, which basically just means you can do everything on Ethereum, you can do on there as well.
The Ethereum makes it valuable because you need Ether to run anything that's both on Ethereum.
Yes, and what that gives you specifically is this whole ecosystem of DeFi Legos that you can route your shit through. So you can take a flash loan out and buy a bunch of stablecoins and do this, do that, go load on a DAO, blah, blah, blah. Like on Ethereum. And you can do it in one transaction because it all hooks up together. If you go to Cardano, the problem with Cardano and any of these other Ethereum killers at the moment is that they just don't have a network share. So for something to overtake Ethereum at this point, they have to be so technically better, which we will get there. Ethereum was the first step. But they have to basically attract away people from this really attractive network effect of being able to send DAI, a stablecoin. We have a stablecoin Ethereum,
So adoption makes it's adoption on the platform that makes it valuable.
Yeah, well, in big part. And especially because with Ethereum, you have these economic little puzzle pieces or Lego pieces that you can start fitting together. And so if you want to go build on Cardano, you have to give up, well, I don't know how much, I haven't tried to build on Cardano, but you have to give up a lot. Yeah.
If you buy now, would you buy a bundle or would you buy a single?
I would choose 2 or 3 by then.
2 or 3?
Yes. I would say Bitcoin and Ethereum. It's hard to go wrong. I would also say just generally, with cryptocurrency, don't buy anything unless it's the kind of money that you can wait for years. So don't buy if you're going to have to take it out in a month to pay for your plane ticket. Then it's gambling, 100%. If you can wait, I would say 2.
Can smoke with me. good.
So this is a hardware wallet. This is a little piece of technology. Its only job is to remember a private key and sign the transaction. So the private key is never actually sent to my computer. I do plug it into my computer and use it. There's some buttons here. I have a little screen interface. But this is about $70 US. I don't know what that would be in rands. And this is so if you had a lot of money, you would buy something like this because it basically combines a lot of security with a lot of convenience. Yeah, you can check it out if you want.
Well, can I ask you to also from Binance to cloud wallet?
Yes. Yeah, because you will have to pay the blockchain to recognize it as yours now. That's the best way to put it.
It depends on which network you use, Earth-Penny or BNB, or it can be cheaper on BNB.
Yes, that's right.
It's more expensive on Earth-Penny.
And yes, and so that gets back to EVM compatible chains. Yeah, you can pass that around if you guys want. A little piece of.
Looks like a flash drive.
Yeah.
Can you explain to me exactly how does it work? Can you send it to me?
Yeah, okay, yeah, exactly. I'll give you the pin too. Yeah. Yeah. So this thing takes a pin, and if I put the pin in wrong 3 times, it will erase my private key. I have it backed up as well. But that's cool because it means I can hand this around. I don't even really care if someone runs off with it because they're not going to guess my pin in 3 tries. And I have a backup so I can go buy another one and reinitialize it as well. So, and additionally, if you have a lot of crypto, especially if you're using a lot, you typically have many wallets. So I have more than one on my computer. I have some on my phone, and my crypto's kind of scattered all over the place. So when I lost crypto, as I told you guys for a few years, it wasn't a big chunk because the big chunk I was doing, I don't think I had this at that point, but I was doing careful stuff like this with the big stuff.
So they're not a venture friendly.
Well, yeah, I guess not. Well, it depends on your systems, and I think what we'll start to see is services that basically give you they offer you, they'll be like a bank for crypto, but in a good way. They'll say, look, let us hold your crypto for you, we'll handle it for you, but you can still do all the cool crypto stuff. But I just don't think we have that much stuff like that yet because only the nerds are interested right now, and the nerds would rather take care of their own stuff. Thank you very much. But we'll get there. We'll get stuff like that. I mean, in a way, exchanges are already like that. For example, Coinbase in the States. It's pretty implausible to me that anything would happen to them in terms of hacking or lawsuits or anything. So in a way, Coinbase is already kind of a bank for crypto that like I would recommend my mom to use if she just wants to buy Ethereum and hold it. Yeah, maybe just put it on crypto or put it on Coinbase.
And what you said about these 2 Indian brothers that now elope with everyone's money, what well, what about it? I mean, well, you haven't heard anything yet. They said it was hacked.
What was their project?
I just know they had like, they disappeared with something like 144 million.
They didn't take any of my crypto. My point is though, that was a group of people's bad investment. And to Indian guys, I don't know. Where I put my money is in things like Bitcoin and Ethereum because what I've done is I've done a deep dive of research.
But then you've got to be very knowledgeable to play this game. I mean, this is not for fools.
You either need to be very knowledgeable or you need to have someone that you trust who is knowledgeable. Like me. but yes, you're right. You either need to be very knowledgeable or you need to trust someone who is knowledgeable.
Rent out your services.
Well, I've already given you Bitcoin and Ethereum. It's hard to go wrong with Bitcoin and Ethereum. I think Bitcoin is a really nice long-term bet, and I think Ethereum will grow a lot more in the short term of 2 to 5 years. Bitcoin and Ethereum is a good bet.
Yes. There is people make bad investments all the time, actual money.
I'm
saying people make bad investments all the time.
Yes.
Actual money, so it's not a crypto problem, it's a bad investment problem.
Yeah, I think crypto just accelerates because there's less regulation in crypto and it moves faster. So with stocks, maybe you put $800 in and it goes down to $600 and that's a bad day. With crypto, you put $800 in and it goes down to like $20 and that's a bad day. If you really make a bad bet. And so you hear scarier horror stories with Bitcoin, with crypto because it's completely unregulated. So, if some marketing shyster just happened to get your ear at the right moment and convince you and uses enough jargon.
Yeah. Another thing that's worrying is like what was his name? Elon Musk says something good about crypto, everything goes up by 20%, and then the next day he decides, okay, I'm not going to use it as payment for Tesla,
right.
And then it goes down again like it's very volatile by one person. I mean, it's just like one guy. Okay, he's the richest guy in the world. But still.
Yes, but only in the short term.
Yeah,
So, you know, he can't change the fact that I use these smart contracts to do real stuff every day. He can't change the fact that I can put smart contracts onto Ethereum and build my own little economic rule set. He can't break those rule set either.
Am I correct in stating that's because of crypto still being that volatile because there's not really a big economy behind it currently, and the bigger the economy becomes, the less of an effect one person like Elon Musk
More
will have
people
on
are going
it.
to sort of support it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it will become more obvious why we should
It's going to
care.
become an option because, I mean, young people are going to ask for that. Now, I've got crypto, can I pay for that?
Yes, yeah,
So we're going to get there. I know we're going to get there. but
yeah.
I don't know how long it's going to take.
I don't either, yeah.
Logan, I heard some rumors
Yeah.
that the Reserve Bank isn't very positive about cryptocurrency.
Oh, yeah.
So I'd like to ask that question: why to Ian? What's the conversation in the Reserve Bank, and why is the Reserve Bank, if everything you've said is so positive, and I mean it sounds to me very trustworthy, what's the deal with the Reserve Bank?
Not pointing
I want to know because I think it's important to hear, you know, all the sides.
I think central banks are worried about anything they can't regulate. So there's a big drive in a lot of central banks to understand it better, first of all. So we've got a fintech unit that was established a few years back and it's growing. So it's sort of, at the moment, it's just sort of understanding the game. And then there's this drive to create central bank digital currencies.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know what your opinion on that is. That's not really the same as a digital, as a cryptocurrency.
That's right.
Because that'll still be legal tender, it will still be backed up by the central bank.
Yeah.
So it's not really the same, it won't really compete with crypto.
That's right. And so, and a similar question I hear a lot is, what's to stop governments from making their own cryptocurrency that they control and then making everyone use that? But there's almost this uncanny valley of cryptocurrency where if you want to retain control, you can't really build a cryptocurrency. And if you say, okay, let's build a cryptocurrency, but let's build in tax and let's build in, like known identities where we can track people, immediately you start to build, you can't actually build a cryptocurrency anymore. The whole point, for example, mining. Anyone who mines can decide what transactions get put into the block. And so if you're not going to have mining, it's not a cryptocurrency. And if you are going to have mining, you can't really censor anything. And so the fear that governments will make cryptocurrency, make everyone use it, they can't. Or if they do, it won't matter because it will be uncontrolled anyway. There might be some middle grounds there, For example, a government could conceivably build a cryptocurrency that's actually a nice cryptocurrency, but they have half of the whole supply to start out with. And they say, look, here's the deal. But in return, we're going to make it to where you can pay your taxes in cryptocurrency. That's feasible. But the government would have to be very okay with losing a lot of control, and really, it would feel so much like rolling the dice when you're this entity that is so used to controlling everything, inflating money to pay for things.
And you can only really control it, like you said, if you own a large enough chunk to move the market yourself.
Right, and even then you can't really control it so much as influence it. You can influence the price. If you own a lot of the mining share, you can start to censor transactions, but you still can't create currency out of thin air. You still can't, if you have money on your private key, that will never move unless your device generates the right signature. So you can't break those rules even if you do overpower the network with your computing power, for example.
But so I do, sensible grown-up, I'm sure, does have a concern with all of this.
Yeah.
And that is if it essentially bypasses taxes.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying that my taxes are being spent well at all, but isn't that going to cause a fundamental problem with governments in general?
Yes.
As to now they don't receive any money to run a country anymore.
So tax becomes voluntary. Doesn't mean tax stops, it means it becomes voluntary. And it's a big shift. I do think it's coming though. And I think the impact in the long term will be that governments will start to treat people like customers because they will need to start convincing people. They can't just come and take the money and say, this is how much you owe us for the work we did. It will be more like, we did all this work, can you please pay us? Or it'll be like, if you don't pay us, we're going to retract these services. But at least they would have to have services to retract. And it also won't be like, pay us your money or we're going to send people with guns after you, because if everyone is jumping onto cryptocurrency, they can't print money or tax to pay for people with guns either.
But how will they know to stop your services, like your water or electricity
Well,
supply?
you'd have to build a system like that.
If they contract you.
Yeah, I don't know. You'd have to build that system. I mean, when I was in Estonia, I had a card to go drive, get on the trains. That card, in theory, could have been something that everyone gets, but is revoked if you don't pay tax.
Okay.
A government would have to get creative with that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's way too technical for South Africa.
Yeah. Well, again, it depends on where you are. So the Nordic countries do so well at actually giving value for their tax. That's the first place I've ever been in Estonia, where I was like, I'll pay tax here. You guys don't have to make me. It's nice. I get something for that. And so those countries won't have to face as nasty of a problem if tax becomes voluntary, because people will feel okay, they'll feel dutiful to do so. To a lesser extent, it's probably true in the States. It's probably to a much lesser extent true here, or somewhere like Zimbabwe. People would just say, I don't have to
But you
pay
can
tax.
understand that because you get something for it, And I mean, if you want something, if you get something, you've got to pay for it.
Right.
So something,
Well, again, I think the difference is it'll become more voluntary. It'll become more like a customer service relationship, to where if the government wants your money, they have to convince you.
So essentially, my prediction for a place like South Africa would be private companies will be essentially just doing everything governmental, which ends up that we don't have a government, but that is also scary in its own sense. Then we'll end up with little Victoria clans.
Yeah.
Versus the rest of South Africa, because they can afford security, they can afford.
Well, South Africa might not be the worst place to be if all this crazy change occurs, because there are already enclaves, gated communities. On the other hand, if you're in a place with less social division, that might be better in its own thing. For example, back to Estonia, favorite country in the world so far. I get the sense there that the economy could break down, the political system could break down, but people will still care about each other. I don't get that sense here. So, but
Aren't they a former Russian colony?
sorry. Yes, they're on they're the northernmost of the bloc.
They're close to the Scandinavians, but they were part of Russia.
Yeah, they're just south of Finland and bordering Russia.
And you were impressed with them.
Well, yes, and in fact, it seems like it's a trend of all those countries that were previously oppressed. They've reacted in a way to say, like, how do we build our system to never let that happen again? And then that's led to some pretty good stuff. For example, in Estonia, if a government official wants to look up some information about you, the only way they can do it with the system that's in place is that they can do it, but then you get notified. In other words, they can't look at you without you knowing about it. They built that system partially in response to the totalitarianism. That's a way we can guarantee it's not happening again.
That's amazing.
Yeah, same with Georgia. Probably a lot of. I bet a lot of. Yeah, well, they're also a similar. I don't know about that system in particular, but it's a similar history and reaction to what I understand.
Belarus and all those kind of
Yeah. 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 Right.
Can you touch on NFTs?
Sure. So NFTs, stands for non-fungible tokens. It's almost coming out like it's a new kind of copyright. So if I hold an NFT, only I can own it and I can transfer it to you, and then you own it. And we can always know who the actual legitimate owner of the NFT is. Same with tokens, like if there's a chunk of Bitcoins, I can always know whose that is. But Bitcoins and other coins are fungible, which means if you send me 2 Bitcoins and you send me 2 Bitcoins, I can send the 4 Bitcoins somewhere else. And it's not like I'm sending, they're fungible, they're the same, right? Non-fungible tokens are non-fungible, so it means if you send me an NFT and you send me an NFT and I say, Francois, I'm going to give you an NFT for something, he'll be like, well, which one? They're non-fungible, they're not the same. So a lot of people are, digital artists now are making artwork and making an NFT for it. And then they're selling this NFT for quite a bit of money, allegedly. Some people will make sets, almost like Pokemon cards in a way. They'll make sets. There's this one called the Bored Ape Yacht Club, where the NFT that you buy is like this portrait of an ape, and they have different features. Like one of them has bubblegum. It's very rare, apparently. And then you can buy and sell these. And with those NFTs, actually in particular, it's like your ticket into a community. So you have this little unique ticket called an NFT that actually gives you access to like this exclusive community. And it's exciting because ultimately NFTs will reach things like real estate. If you think about what real estate is, it is the most non-fungible token we have. Again, if I'm going to sell, hey, Francois, can I sell you some property? He's going to say, which property? Property is an NFT in a technical sense. And so I was really confused about NFTs for a while because they seem to be coming up as this copyright thing, but at the same time, if an NFT is attached to a piece of art, I can copy the art as many times as I want. So it's not about copyright, literally, because no one can control the information. So what does an NFT actually represent? It's hard to really say. But what we can say is that we always will know who the owner of a particular NFT is, and people seem to be collecting it for the same reasons, roughly, that people collect Mona Lisa and put a value to that. Even though, again, I can probably recreate the Mona Lisa. That's not anywhere near as valuable as the NFT. Or sorry, the original. So, yeah.
And what system is Ethereum as well?
Say again?
What system is Ethereum?
Yes, it's on Ethereum. Ethereum but some of these other smart contract platforms are, I think, rightfully identifying it as something to get into now to try to bootstrap their own network effect. So we might in fact see, I mean, when DeFi started going crazy, that was Ethereum's game. We might see that as NFTs go more crazy, there might be another blockchain that pops up that actually is like, we do NFTs really well. For all we know, maybe they build their system to where NFT transfers are super cheap, for example, or minting it's really cheap. But yeah, it's still mostly on Ethereum. And so it's very expensive. It costs like $80-something to mint an NFT. Yeah.
And it's literally just a piece of coding saying, I have this sticker.
Well, it's abstract ownership of a particular something.
Yeah.
But what does the ownership mean? Because again, you can't stop people from copying it. It's hard to say. But it is, at the very least, it's like the deed to a car or a real estate deed. It's a thing that we always know who actually is the owner of it. The difference is the legal deed obviously is backed up by the government to enforce some particular things. But at the same time, I can go build a smart contract system that recognizes NFT ownership to turn on some system, and that's entirely possible. The NFTs themselves don't necessarily define. It's like NFT is a key, but no one has built a lock yet. Or rather, anyone can build a lock, and some of the NFTs go and unlock certain things. But the thing that seems to be getting big right now is that people will make an NFT for artwork, and then people will compete to bid to get the artwork. There's this whole market of NFTs. People are apparently making crazy money. Minting and buying NFTs. But it's the same game as buying crypto. I mean, you want to buy low and sell high, and that's a gamble.
So let's say I am an artist.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm an art collector. Let's say I own one of Van Gogh's brilliant pieces of work.
Yeah.
Do I have the right to make an NFT for that piece of art, or how exactly would that work? Or can you go and make an NFT on my Van Gogh, and I go like, what? You just
right. It's a good question.
How does that?
So let's put it this way: 5 people could make the NFT and say it's for the Van Gogh painting. And then I would almost want to say it's sort of up to the network or the social consensus as to which one is real. And how that actually plays out. Here's what you could feasibly do. You could feasibly make a company whose whole purpose was to basically verify that someone says that, like, verify, oh, that is the real Van Gogh painting, that is the real piece of this traditional artwork. we will now mint you an NFT and give it to you. And that would be a reasonable approach, because if the company itself gains enough reputation as being legitimate, then the network, the consensus will be, where did that NFT come from? Oh, it came from that company that always is honest about and diligent in their research. So then that would become the NFT. But it's a social, it's a consensus fundamentally. Yeah. Yeah, let's do a break.
And then get back to
Let's do a break. Maybe we can do a break and we can just chat. I mean, like, we don't have to, it doesn't have to be about one way or two way, but just me as a center. We can become decentralized.
Grounded.